Welcome to Designing Healthcare That Cares, the show where we explore how to build healthcare systems where people and performance thrive. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Sutton, a physician, coach, and healthcare leader who believes that human flourishing and organizational excellence go hand in hand. Each week, I talk with leaders, change makers, and innovators about how to shift culture, lead with purpose, and tackle the root causes of burnout. Because when healthcare works for the people in it, everyone wins. Welcome to the Designing Healthcare That Cares podcast. And in this episode is a solo cast all by myself. And I'm going to be getting very real and transparent with you guys today about some of the mistakes that I made as a new physician leader. My hope is that you'll hear some tips in here that will help to keep you from making some of these mistakes. And even if you're not a physician leader, you'll probably recognize some of these as well. I'm going to start with a story. And this is something that one of my coaches told me a long time ago. The best thing that somebody ever told me: you're replaceable. I remember sitting in my office on the phone with my coach at the time, and I was griping about how much I had on my plate, how much work I had to do, and how I couldn't get any of it done because I was spending all my time in meetings. And when he told me that, it hit me like a punch in the gut. I was insulted at first. He was actually trying to be very kind. He wasn't trying to be cruel. But as a new physician leader, I was overextending myself. And in doing so, I was overinflating my importance. I was filled with all kinds of energy. I had all types of ideas on how to get things done and lots of plans, lots of things I wanted to do, but not a lot of results to show for it. So when he said, I've got some news for you, Laura, you're replaceable. Man, it hits me still with a gut punch to this day. And I realized it was a gift. And like I said, it was the best thing that somebody ever told me. He helped me to realize that I was actually creating the chaos that I was living in. And since I was creating it, I needed to be the one to unravel it. So the first step is realizing that, I'm not indispensable. And if I get sick, you know what? The meeting's going to still happen without me. If I go on vacation, the projects will still move ahead without me. And it was really a gift to learn that. Once I got over the initial shock of hearing that, it gave me permission to step away. I realized that I don't have to try and do all the things. And actually trying to do that was causing me to spin out of control and get burned out. Once I was able to shift my mindset, it helped me to prioritize and focus. And I was able to accomplish more in a much shorter period of time. And it's something that I have to still remind myself of, even to this day. When I notice that frenetic energy coming up, I have to remind myself, hey, I'm replaceable, and that's okay. It was a huge lesson for me. I'll touch on some other lessons that I learned. And it just reminds me that when I first stepped into leadership from private practice, moving into a large health system, was asked to be a leader, I was incredibly honored. And I was provided a lot of tools along the way. And at the same time, there were a lot of gaps. And those gaps weren't the fault of my organization. It was just that there hadn't been a lot of clinician leadership training up to that point. Clinicians like myself, we are asked to become leaders because of our clinical skills. And yet when we go into leadership skills, at least I found this for me and for a lot of my clients, we find that the skills that are required to be a good leader are actually sometimes directly in conflict with the skills that are required to be a good clinician. So this has led me to this point where I'm really focused on helping clinician leaders to improve their leadership skills and, again, avoid some of the same mistakes that I've made. And like I said, if you're not a clinician leader, you're a leader, the fact that you're listening to this. So I imagine that you're going to find some good takeaways here. So I want to share some other mistakes that I made early on. The first one, like I said, trying to be indispensable, trying to be everything for everyone, not asking for help, thinking that staying busy would make me irreplaceable. And I learned that that was not the case. Staying busy just makes me look busy, but it doesn't actually mean that I'm producing results. Instead, I was overwhelmed. I was reactive. I wasn't developing my team, and I didn't know how to prioritize what was right in front of me. I had to learn. Again, I'm replaceable, and I have to build the capacity beyond myself. my job as a leader was to make sure that if for some reason I'm not there, the team can still function without me. That was a huge lesson for me to learn. In order to do that, I had to develop the team members that were working with me. I couldn't be the bottleneck. And once I realized that, then I gave them the freedom that they all needed to develop and then develop their own team members and their direct reports as well. And I learned that asking for help and delegating is not a sign of weakness. It's a necessary part of becoming a leader. And again, when we do that, we develop the people that depend on us. Let me ask you, where in your life, whether that's in work or some other aspect of your life, are you trying to do all the things? Where are you over-functioning, thinking that it will make you replaceable, but it's actually burning you out? The next mistake I made was modeling the wrong culture. There were so many times early in my career where I saw what was modeled for me was doing a lot of work after hours, emailing, working on projects, even sometimes meetings after hours and on weekends. And I've started doing this myself again because it was modeled for me, not realizing what the impact on the people that I'm modeling and realizing that as a leader, we called this in my previous organization, casting a shadow. And I am setting the tone for the culture of the team around me. That if I'm emailing late at night and on weekends, I'm setting the expectation, whether or not I'm saying it out loud, I'm setting an unspoken expectation to them that they need to be doing the same thing. They need to be monitoring their emails at night and on weekends. And, I started getting replies from them like 11 p.m. And I remember telling them, you don't have to respond to me. But it took a lot of self-reflection and a lot of difficult conversations and people reflecting back to me, this is what I think you're asking me to do, to realize that just because that culture works for me and that approach works for me doesn't mean it works for everybody else. So I used a ton of tricks like delay send and working offline and things where maybe I could still get the work done that I needed to get done at the times which worked for me, but I wasn't communicating. They weren't getting my emails late at night. So that was a big lesson for me that if there are things that I'm seeing in my team that I don't want, again, these behaviors like emailing at night or on weekends or these other things that I don't want from them, I have to look at myself in the mirror and ask, how am I setting the tone? What am I normalizing? And how am I setting that example for them? So let me ask you, what's something that you're modeling that is unintentional? A behavior that you're seeing in your team, whether that's a desired behavior or an undesirable behavior that you don't want, and how are you contributing to that? So that's my second mistake. My third mistake, and this is a big one, avoiding a difficult conversation. So early on in my career, I had to have a difficult conversation with somebody that was previously a peer, but then with the stroke of a pen, all of a sudden became a direct report. You probably found yourself in a similar situation where somebody who was a peer all along then becomes a direct report, and you have to have a conversation with them that might not go well. And I knew this person had some emotional outbursts at other points in their life. And, I really liked this person, but I was scared. I was really intimidated. So I put off the conversation, right? Just like other things that we're afraid of. At least I'm afraid of. I put it off. I did not want to have it. But it got to a point, and I very vividly remember the meeting I was having, the coaching session I was having with some colleagues and another respected leader. And they just kind of hit me over the head like, you've got to do this. You've got to have this conversation. And this is a growth for you. If you don't have this conversation, then nothing's going to get better. And the more you put it off, the worse it's going to get. So I realized, I've got to have this conversation. So I had the conversation and it did not go well. Emotions were really high and it was an awful moment for me. I really thought I destroyed the relationship. And what I realized was that by my putting off the conversation, I made it worse. I heightened the emotions even more. I thought I was keeping the peace. I thought I was avoiding conflict, and by doing that, I was keeping the peace. I was actually making it worse. So what I've learned from there is putting off those difficult conversations doesn't make it any easier. It makes it more difficult. And the more quickly I can have those difficult conversations, say what needs to be said, then the more often I can reduce emotions, reduce tension, and reduce future conflict. So let me ask you, what's a difficult conversation that you're putting off right now? Is it work related? Is it not work related? What's something in your life that needs to be said that's not being said? Think about that. The next mistake, again, this is a big one, is communicating without alignment. So let me set the stage. I was overseeing a team that was responsible for making recommendations regarding operational decisions. So decisions that needed to be made in the medical clinics that were within our territory. My team and I were informed of a regulation, a law that we needed to comply with. This was something that wasn't a choice unless we wanted to be out of compliance with the law. And we realized that implementing this law was going to have a significant operational impact. So my team and I sat down and worked out this huge, massive plan about how our clinics and the operational leaders can implement this regulation. We knew it was going to have a big impact, and we thought, we don't have a choice. We have to do this. So me, as a leader of the clinic, I was the messenger, not just the messenger. I was the leader. I say that not to minimize my role, but I fully believed in what we were doing, the necessity of it. And so my team and I drafted this very comprehensive email, which I was very proud of at the time, and made arrangements to send it out to a massive group of people, including company leadership, operational leaders, people that were really above me in the org chart. And yet, with my role, I had the authority or the expertise to be making these recommendations. So I planned the email to go out middle of the week, and I don't know if this was planned. It probably was, but the email actually went out when I was getting ready to board a flight to a conference. This was in the days before you could get Wi-Fi on planes. So I'm on my plane, enjoying my trip. So far, get off the plane, get all checked into the hotel, registered for the conference, sitting down to the keynote. And I think, I'm going to open up my email. I'm going to see. Oh my gosh, my inbox exploded. My email blew up. People were not happy. There were some really not nice things said in the email. People were really, really angry with me. And oh my gosh, I still remember exactly sitting there and how I felt. I remember being in that ballroom very clearly. And I was upset. I thought, oh gosh, I drafted this huge plan. Don't they know how hard I worked to get this plan out, to get this email out, to make sure I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's before sending it? And I had to do some damage control. I think the first person I called was my boss, and talked to him, talked to several other operational leaders. Some of them were more gentle than others, talked to my team. And it really became apparent in the conversation with the operational leaders that they understood why this was so important, why I did this. They just wish they had been brought in sooner. They didn't disagree with me. They disagreed with my approach. They wish they had been asked about this sooner. They said, we could have helped with this. If we had only known, we're the ones that know about our clinics the best. If we had only known what was going on, we could have helped you out and we could have avoided this. That was a huge lesson for me. I thought they were too busy, didn't want to know, didn't care to be involved. And I was also intimidated by some of them. And that kept me from reaching out, kind of going back to the difficult conversation. I was avoiding conflict. But I realized that from that day forward, it was a huge lesson for me. Whenever there was a big operational change that I was a part of, I brought in stakeholders early, and not always people that agreed with me, some people that I knew were going to disagree, but they needed to be involved early and often. That was a huge lesson for me, is to engage the right people right away. So think about this mistake that I made. As you're preparing for a project or any initiative or anything in your life, who needs to be involved? Who needs to be engaged? Who needs to be at the table early along to reduce friction going forward? These are all very clear and crystal clear memories for me of mistakes that I made in my leadership. And I don't want you to make those same mistakes. That's why I'm sharing this information with you. I see a lot of themes in these mistakes, and this is not an exhaustive list. I have made so many others. These were some of the ones that had the most emotional connection for me. There's some themes that are coming out here, though. In a lot of cases, my role wasn't clear. My responsibilities and authority weren't clear. I often didn't have the tools and the skills I needed in order to be as successful as I wanted. There was a lot of pressure on me. As I said at the beginning, I wanted to do all the things. I wanted to be everything for everybody. And I really had to build out a framework for myself on what makes an effective leader. I don't want you to have to recreate the wheel. So I created one for you. I created a framework and a course just for clinician leaders called the Clinician Leadership Compass. And it is designed so that you as a clinician leader don't make the same mistakes that I did. You likely were asked to be a leader because you're an excellent clinician and you probably weren't given the tools and the resources that you need to be successful. When I was in those shoes, I felt like I was doing something wrong, but it wasn't me. It was the lack of training, the lack of tools. And you deserve those tools because there's a lot at stake. You deserve leadership tools. You deserve structured communication frameworks. You deserve strategies that you can use for delegation, having difficult conversations, how to hold people accountable, how to hold yourself accountable, how to be an effective leader without burning out. Because these skills are learnable. It's not about what's innate in you and whether you have the ability. You have the ability. You probably haven't been given the skills. That's what this course is for. It's an online self-paced course, and it does offer 10 hours of continuing medical education for both physicians and nurse practitioners. This is perfect for you if you're a clinician leader and you feel underprepared and you've made some of these same mistakes and you don't want to make any more. And if you want to lead with confidence instead of feeling conflict, then this course is designed for you. You don't have to learn the hard way like I did. You can take the course and come away with the skills and the tools that you need. It's costly when we ask clinicians to be leaders and we don't train them. Our leaders will leave, they'll find somewhere else to go, and then the people that report to them leave, and that's very, very costly. I don't want you to be frustrated like I was. You can become the excellent leader that you already are with this course, and I hope you will join me. The waitlist is open. The course is launching soon. Go to www.thepurposefulmd.com/courses to join the waitlist and be the first to know when the course is open. I'm so excited to bring this to you, and I can't wait to see what you'll accomplish. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening to Designing Healthcare That Cares. If today's conversation gave you a new idea or inspired you to see things differently, share this episode with a colleague and keep the conversation going. And if you're ready to take the next step in building a thriving healthcare culture, you can find resources and ways to connect with me at drlaurasutton.com. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, and it should not replace care from a qualified healthcare provider. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified professional for any medical questions or decisions.